Since December 1st, we have been leaning in to the prelude to the greatest story ever told. If you want to know the prelude to Luke chapter 2, verses 1 to 20, just go back one chapter in Luke's gospel to Luke chapter 1, beginning at verse 6, and you will get the stories that lead up to this moment in time. You hear stories of Zechariah and Elizabeth receiving a child that they did not expect. You hear about the interactions of angels with Zechariah and with Mary. You get beautiful songs proclaiming that salvation has come. And these songs, they become a mighty chorus that's sung to shepherds keeping watch over their fields at night. A song not just of news, but of good news. Good news. I don't know about you, but it feels like good news is hard to come by these days. We turn on our TVs, we open our social media feeds, and all we get is sad news and tragic news and news that plays on our fears. It almost feels like there's a competition between all the news and social media outlets to tell us the worst story possible. When all I really want is some good news. Some good news. And in my nostalgic moments, I go back in time to when I was a child and watched the news on Channel 11 down in Savannah and saw Doug Weathers and Pat Prokop. Some of y'all know who I'm talking about. I remember Sonny Dixon, who lived just down the road from here. When you hear them tell the news, it was like talking with a friend. And they always seemed to have good news to share. Perhaps spending my childhood before the 24-hour news cycle, the internet, and cell phones, it gives me a different perspective on the kind of news that I want to hear day in and day out. But y'all, I want some good news, some truly good news for our world. But good news, it seems, is hard to come by. Our world, our story, the story of humanity is dominated by bad news, news of how we have hurt one another, stolen from one another, wronged one another, exploited one another, how we've turned our back on God and on each other. And it's not just me or you that longs for good news. I think it's the whole world that longs to hear some truly good news. And it's into this sort of a world, this lost and broken world, that God sends His Son, born to a teenage couple on the outskirts of the Roman Empire, born into a world filled with violence and pain, a world that's not all that different from our world today. Do you remember what the angel said to the shepherds that night of Jesus' birth? They said, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today, in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He's the Messiah. He's the Lord." The angel's message is good news, truly good news that will cause great joy. It's good news that breaks through the darkness and the pain of our world, that breaks through the brokenness of our lives. It's not just good news. It's great news that the angel brings. But what is good news anyways? Well, the good news, the gospel that these angels bring is that a Savior has been born. A child is lying in a manger who will be for us what the prophets foretold so long ago, that He will be for us a wonderful counselor, a mighty God, an everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. This child will be Emmanuel, God with us, sent to deliver us from the tyranny of sin and death. Somehow, in the vulnerability of a newborn, in the vulnerability of a child, the full presence of God has come to dwell. Somehow, amid the brokenness and imperfection of our reality, perfection has stepped into the story. Somehow, in a filthy manger filled with stinky animals, in the most far-flung corner of the world, hope has broken through. because a child has been born unto us, a son has been given to take away the sins of the world. This is good news for the whole of creation. It's the fulfillment of the story, the covenant that God made with humanity so long ago through the birth of Jesus Christ. The curse of sin and death and heartache and pain is being lifted. And a new order of things, a new order of creation is dawning. The age-old story of the universe's frustration is being rewritten as heaven has now touched earth. Jesus' birth signifies the inauguration of a new age where there's a possibility for our world to be fully redeemed, for the deserts to burst forth with life and the crooked places to be straightened, for the mountains to be laid low because their Creator has come to dwell with creation. For the trees of the field to clap their hands, the mountains and hills to burst forth with song because their Savior has come. Jesus' birth is good news for our world and for the whole of creation. But Jesus' birth is also good news for your world. Because here's the thing. I know you feel it. The heaviness, the weightiness of life, how frustrating and tiresome everything seems to be. To you and to your world comes the same good news of great joy that will be for all people. A Savior has been born for you. For you, friends. For you. Jesus' birth opens up the possibility for you and I to enter into a relationship with God. This is something that none of us could have ever done on our own. Our sinfulness and our brokenness broke our relationship with God and has left us and all of creation reeling. Because of sin, because of our sin, we've lost our sense of self, our sense of purpose, and any hope for life that truly is life. But the good news is that this child born in a manger is able to do what we could not do. We could not overcome our sin, so God sent His Son. We could not overcome our brokenness, so God sent His Son. We could not find a path to peace and healing and wholeness, so God sent His Son. God sent His Son to live with us, to die for us, and to rise, so that eternity might be open to us. That's good news for you and for me and for all of us. But you know what else? It's good news for the whole world. In fact, it's good news for everyone out there. Thing is, they just don't know it yet. They don't know the hope, the peace, the joy, and the love that you and I know. They don't know that a child has been born that will take away the sins of the world and will reorder all of creation. They just don't know yet. So God is sending us, friends. God is sending us just like He sent those angels 2,000 years ago, just like He sent His Son to proclaim good news of great joy to our families, to our friends, to our neighborhoods and our offices and our workplaces, to the very ends of the earth. God is sending us, just like He sent Jesus, to make God's love known real in our world. Friends, you can do that right where you are today. You can let your light shine. The light of Christ that is in you can shine so brilliantly and so brightly that the folks around you will come to you and ask you, how is it that you have such hope? How is it that you have such joy? How is it that in the midst of all this brokenness and bad news that you can live a life that truly is alive? And in that moment, you can share the good news of great joy, so that will indeed be for all people. You can make God's love real in this world. You can do it, friends. Christmas is, after all, a moment to remember the good news of great joy that a Savior has been born to us. And we are invited, like those very first shepherds, to come to the manger to receive him just as we are, to worship him, to believe in him, and to carry the news of his birth to the ends of the earth. To worship him and to believe in him, so that the good news those angels came to proclaim can become our own.